document subcommittee was, did you want the recommendation was? Yeah, this is great. Do name tags.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Thank you. All right.
Logo, the top logo.
I put on my desk
Thank
for
you.
work today, so I don't forget. It's always a little bit. Like, I actually remember to wear mine today. It's like,
Cable seems not too much. It's
Uh,
like, it works, but then. it's-
this is how I always do the board meeting.
Nice to meet you, I'm James.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jake James.
Very nice to meet you.
I didn't,
Sorry, I didn't get to run you soon for this. You can get in trouble. We do a Zoom account.
you good? How are you? Hey, how are things going?
Pretty good setup.
Good.
Okay.
Process. I just scaled it down significantly because obviously teams is.
All right.
Yeah.
See, but if it's been working for
For the name tag, we're in the process of getting new committee flags for the bottom, so I'll get you one as soon as we have.
you just put the PowerPoints up there as well.
Yeah.
I think we got a quorum now. I'd like to go ahead and get started. If we could, everyone comfortable with that?
All right, so we're recording.
And Jason asked if he could get a special send. He was intending to come. Do we always send it out?
Yeah.
Oh, we do.
What, the recording afterwards? Yeah, we post it on YouTube usually within the next week or so.
DAC members, welcome. Really excited for our I guess it's Q4, Q4 DAC meeting. It's been an exciting year. I think we've gone through a lot of transformation and kind of reimagining what the DAC is and how it works. Got 2 new members here, which is very exciting. We'll have a chance during our subcommittee reports to let them introduce themselves a little bit. But I really feel a lot of energy. I've heard a lot of good things coming out of the subcommittees, and I'm looking forward to the readouts from the different groups there. But I just really want to thank you all. I know we're all volunteers here. We're all trying to really make public transit in Alexandria the best that it possibly can be, and really contribute in a meaningful and beneficial way for the whole of the city and for the region. So, really, that's it in terms of welcome. Hope you all had a nice Halloween and have happy holidays ahead. Thanksgiving's just around the corner. So, Camille, I'll hand to you.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. We're gonna start with the roll call. Nathaniel Cartagena,
Present.
Jim Durham,
Present.
Eric Adams,
Present.
Marcus Bernier,
Said it's on its way.
Nafal Kalam, Matthew McManus,
Here.
James Mozanko,
Here.
Yvette Young.
Yvette, are you still online?
Jason Koenig. Bonnie O'Day here. Yeah. Eric Van Horn,
Present.
Jim Palmer,
Present.
Jacob Joseph.
Oh, here, it's yours.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Have it on this one.
Calvin O'Brien.
Okay. Camilla has circulated the meeting minutes. I wanted to reiterate, I think, Bonnie's remarks, which the new minutes formats are really helpful and really punchy, make it really, I said really 3 times. It makes it really effective at understanding what we talked about in the past. So just want to move to motion to approve board minutes as passed, or if there are any revisions.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes.
Second. Second. Are we gonna do ayes for this? I guess, can we just do ayes for who would like to pass?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye. Aye.
Any nays or abstention? Yeah, welcome, Marcus. Marcus, are you cool with the minutes as they were sent? Did you have any revisions?
Yes, no, I don't have it.
All right, so moved.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcos, are you comfortable? I mean, I know you just walked in. Do we want to start with a different subcommittee?
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Yeah, so since last time we met, we established the Membership and Recruitment Subcommittee. That's myself, Nathaniel, and Jimmy. The biggest thing that we've accomplished since then is that we onboarded two fantastic new members, Jacob and Calvin. In the future, moving forward, what we want to move on, or actually first, moving forward, we're taking control of the first step of the interview process as we did with Jacob and Calvin, which, involves interviewing new candidates as they're passed our way, and then sending our recommendations on to the chair, the vice chair, and of course, Dash later. Also, in the future, we want to pursue the other half of our name, the recruitment half. There's been some crosstalk between Nathaniel and Yvette on events and public engagement and how we can, well, one, avenues where we can increase Dash/DAX presence at public events across the city. And then also two, how we can leverage that increased presence to get interested parties involved with DAC. I think that covers it, right?
Sounds right to me. I think, the only thing that I would add is I think we would be looking for feedback from our newest members about how the recruitment first meeting process went. And I think that's the other.
And also our newest members. Now I'll let y'all introduce yourselves. There we go.
Yeah.
Unless you already did.
No,
and I
we
wasn't
don't.
here.
No, this is the slot.
Yes, whoever wants to go first. Now I'm gonna sit.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I chose to join DAC because I wanted to focus on making public transit better for the city. I primarily just bike wherever I go. That's my primary form of transportation, but I like using the bus to get to one part of the city and from the other because, I don't want to bike all the way to Old Town for Shirlington. And I just want to make sure that there's better coexistence between the biking infrastructure in Alexandria and the Dash system. That's it.
I think you're in good company on that, but welcome. Very excited to have you.
I'm Calvin, and I decided to join the DAC because I use it every day. I use it for my work. I use it for my school. And because it's such an integral part of my life, I want to make sure that it's not held to a better standard, but maybe that I could improve that and help pass that knowledge that I have being a high school student on to the DAC and the overarching Dash as well. And yeah.
To both of our new members, thank you for the introduction. And like I said, I think Marcos, Jimmy, or I maybe will be reaching out just to get maybe some more feedback about the onboarding process and what might be useful.
Well, welcome, you. Excited to have you. Thank you. Okay, now I'm done. There we go.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I think Marcos did a great job. Great to have you on board.
Okay, Advocacy Public Policy Subcommittee, Bonnie, Jim, and Marcos.
So committee is, you can see on the slides, myself, Bonnie, and Marcos, and they've reluctantly accepted their insistence that I be the spokesperson. But we've met a couple of times, and the first thing we wanted to do was decide on an objective, and it was interesting that we coalesced fairly quickly on that. About securing additional funding to support Dash service expansion. So it is important to notice, as noted in the approach on this slide, is that's not just local city of Alexandria, but also there's funding at the state level, what's called the merit program that provides a little bit of capital and operating funding. And our ask there of our elected leaders is to see if they can't get a budget amendment in the General Assembly to increase the size of that pot. Next slide, please. So we met with Councilman McPike. He did point out that it's a pretty extremely tough financial situation in both the Commonwealth and in the city. So these will be heavy lifts. At the state level, Councilman McPike sits on the two-person city council legislative subcommittee that sort of previews and sets up the legislative asks. That's one of the reasons we went to him first. Said at the state level, it was important to do a couple things. One was engage every single one of our elected officials. So the city of Alexandria is represented actually by 3 different people in the general set, well, 4 Senator Evan, but then 3 delegates in the House of Delegates. And he recommended we meet with all of them and personally intercede with them, as well as working with the city to make increased transit funding part of the legislative ask by the city, which I'm pretty sure they will. And we'll see how that goes. I think the city will adopt its first package this month. I haven't checked on that. So our next steps. The other issue, I guess I'll cover right here. We drafted a DAC fiscal year 27 budget letter to the city manager. My apologies for sending out the letter last week. I corrected that today or yesterday with the 27 letter. I heard from almost everybody, but we have a motion and a second to approve the letter.
I just wanted a quick clarification from the subcommittee, and this may be a missed handoff here, but did we include the new members on the opportunity to review and?
Yes, Calvin already looked at the first letter and said he was in favor of it. And yeah, because Jacob's been on the distribution for the letter. So yeah, and I think, I don't want to take up too much time, but basically, in 2019, the dashboard approved the Alexandria Transit Vision Plan. It said, hey, here's our long-term vision we'd like to achieve by 2030, and here's where we think we need to be by 2022. And there are 2 remaining service improvements left from that fiscal year 22 plan. The board, as I understand it, has prioritized those 2 things. And so that's what the advocacy committee recommended be in the DAX letter. In addition to that, we have representatives on this board, not necessarily here tonight, on the commuter routes. And there has been a return to the office mandate earlier in the calendar year. And so we thought it was worth considering also getting back to, I think it's roughly 20-minute headways, which is what they were prior to the design of the new Dash network. We had more frequent commuter service in those networks for 103 and 104. So that's what our letter says. That's what it's based on. It's very similar to last year's. And it's aligned with, I think it's consistent with, but not exactly, the ATC board's letter. And the other thing we did is because of Councilman McPike's emphasis on, it's a tough year financially. We emphasize the return on investment. If you can invest in anything in its financial environment, it's things that are going to actually increase revenue. Admittedly, that increases at the state level, but that's what's in our letter. And I think everybody's had a chance to look at it, and most people have had a chance to look at it. Anthony, did you have any questions on it?
I endorse it by email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter as drafted and sent by
committee, yeah.
by the subcommittee. Anybody to second?
Can I second? I'll second it.
Body? Vote to affirm with ayes.
I,
Any nay or abstention? So moved.
Okay, thank you. I'll send that to you tomorrow, the second of the manager. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for a wonderful update. Bonnie or Marcos, anything to add? I think it was pretty thorough.
Just my last bullet, next steps.
Oh, sorry.
We do have our next meeting scheduled. It's Monday, 17th of November. Calvin and Jacob have agreed to at least meet, or not agree. They've indicated their interest and they're going to come to our next meeting. And so hopefully there'll be permanent members and sites were prepared before you gave me your inputs. But so yeah, and we have a meeting scheduled with Abdel for next week.
Oh, great.
I haven't got it out to the other members yet.
okay, good.
Good. Yeah, amazing.
That's Councilman Abdel El Nubi, excuse me.
Wonderful. Yeah. And a previous frequent visitor. What's that?
See, he was on this committee.
Yeah, it was on the committee. Bonnie, Marcos, anything else to add from the subcommittee that you'd like to reference before we move on?
No,
Jim covered it.
just, yeah, he's provided great leadership.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's good.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Looks like you've all been busy. Appreciate the updates. A lot of really meaningful work. Looking forward to getting the letter out. Okay. Events and public engagement, do you all have a spokesperson for that? Like Jimmy and Matthew are in the room.
I don't believe so.
Did someone want to give a quick update on how the subcommittee's going, what you've been up to at previous discussions?
I can update that, helpful email went around for the rodeo. Several of us were able to come and attend. I think it's important, that we be included, so thank you. People want to go and just sort of show the flag and support your events.
Yeah, I think one thing that was raised by Yvette, so I saw good rodeo attendance. I also saw in my neighborhood is it the block party?
Right.
That was really fun. I mean, my family came and slowed down packing up, but we had plenty of cookies anyway and had a very nice time. But I do think you have to bump into Jimmy in my neighborhood and, I think these things are really important. But Yvette had raised what Marcos already had described, which is we do think that the membership committee wants to see if there are opportunities to do some active recruitment at events if appropriate. Obviously, not every event is appropriate for that. We'd like to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, I think that's your opportunity of attending and also having the people. If you need any kind of resources or anything that we can provide to them, we're then happy.
Sounds good.
And
I was gonna ask, I believe you got a few updates out of this committee in terms of ideas. Is that true?
yes, one of the ideas, if you haven't received a name tag yet, Yvette had raised that as a potential thing just to be identifiable at events and stuff. So most every member, if you haven't, has been provided a set of different dash pins, one being the trolley, one being the dashboard logo, and then one being the gold bus logo that we have, and then also a name tag that specifies your name, your membership on the DAC, and if there's a position associated with it also on there, and then it has a little committee flag. So if you don't have those, just let us know. We're happy to do that. But that was one of the things that came out of the subcommittee. And we're also in the process of updating a few things as far as a SharePoint and a shared calendar and stuff like that. Just still coordinating with the city to make sure that we can get all of y'all access as soon as possible. It's just been a slow rollout to get some of that stuff together.
That sounds good. And that's going to be an ongoing coordination between this subcommittee and the DASH professional staff? Any members of that subcommittee have any other remarks besides what Matthew shared?
Thought the events were great. Those are the strongest magnets of all time. It's
Like
like
to make sure that they stay on, so.
magnets that will fall. For a drywall, it would stay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I had a great time being a judge at the rodeo, and I also created a quick video on YouTube if anyone is interested in seeing it. From my experience.
Eric, would you be willing to share that with the professional staff? Maybe we can circulate that with.
Yeah, I think I sent it to Caleb when he
you have-
sent out those videos. So, I mean, the picture.
Yeah, I'll try and, if I haven't gotten it out already, I'll try and get that together.
I tried putting it in the chat too, but the link won't allow me.
Yeah, we'll share after the meeting.
One of the other items that we were engaged in was that there were actually, I think, 4 of us that were at the new bus garage dedication ceremony, which was really a neat event. I think that we heard from a lot of people, and it was. And a lot of people came out to attend that event. I think it was very successful.
Yeah, I shared a picture of us with the DASH professional staff too. I think is in the deck somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not in the printed version, it's in the digital version. I'll reshare it once it comes out.
Yeah, that was a really good event. Anything else from the events and public engagement subcommittee. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up with the rider experience. Eric, if you're comfortable, I'll take a first stab at it and feel free to add anything that I missed from your notes. So we had myself, Jason, meet. We weren't able to connect with Eric and Knopfel quite yet, but we did pencil out some goals. We wrote 3 goals out, represent the ridership priorities of our neighborhoods and the broader Alexandria community, identify areas for improvement and test some of the systems for support and for feedback, and then evolve the efforts to capture the whole rider experience, not, beyond just what happens, from the moment you step on the bus and walk off. So a few specific initiatives that we raised was to actually evaluate some of the customer service systems. We thought this would be something more appropriate to kind of talk about what's a kind of fair way to do that without impacting, other actual riders who might have real issues. Use some of the other feedback systems and determine their effectiveness. Continue to provide specific feedback during subcommittee meetings and DAC meetings. That's probably what we spent the most of our time on, was actually talking through some specific feedback for the system and for our ridership. And then the last initiative we had discussed was reviewing social media, website, and print materials as a part of, the rider experience subcommittee. We did add probably a half dozen meaningful feedback items to the DAC's feedback tracker. So that's been, I think, shared with everyone. We added a few things there. But I think that's pretty much where we are. We are still, I think our current goal is to try to meet at least once between the primary DAC meeting. So we'll have our next one in Q1 for our next DAC session. So that's the quick readout. Eric, did you have anything to add from your end?
No, you covered it all.
Thank you. So just before we change gears to come out of subcommittees, I wanted to thank everyone for the enthusiasm on this. My request would be that we try to, keep the subcommittees alive or otherwise vote to close them. So I would just ask that we try to have at least one session with your subcommittee in between meetings and, try to get a quorum and keep things moving. I really think this is a meaningful way for us to drive the things that we're, most energized by. And it gives the DAC a lot of flexibility not to have every single member slowing things down, but also to multiply the, kind of on the flip side, to also multiply the efforts of a small group with a bigger team. So, I really want to thank you. I enjoyed the enthusiasm and all the effectiveness so far. Josh, I think it's off to you, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me and welcome new members of the committee. Before I talk about Dash, I'll just remark and say I'm really excited to see the work that you all are doing and the engagement that you have with this committee and the efforts you're making with your subcommittees and the various the revamp of your guidelines and whatnot. I think that's really excellent energy, and that's really something that we've been hopeful would come of this group. So it looks like you've got a great group and the right people in the right direction. Nathaniel is doing a great job as chair. So thank you for the work you do. I know you're not paid to do this, and it's really important for us to hear from you and for you to be a part of this work. What we do as transit professionals every day is to serve our community. The reality is that we live in this every single day. We live in the business, so to say. And I feel like Dash is comprised of a bunch of people who are really into transit and really passionate about what they do. At the end of the day, though, that doesn't mean that we're complete experts. And so you're here to help us make sure we're charting the right path and we're doing things the right way and that we're not missing things and that our riders are experiencing the service the way that we envision it to be. So thank you for the work you're doing. For those of you who are new, I'm Josh Baker. I'm the general manager and CEO here at Dash. I've been here for 8 years. I joined in 2017. And we've been doing an awful lot. one of the initiatives that I worked on since I've been here is creating this committee. So as that's the case, it's very near and dear to my heart. So if there are ways that we can continue to support you outside of what we're already doing, please make sure you speak up and let us know how that looks. I'll talk a little bit about Dash, sort of where we are. Of course, Raymond here and Camilla and Caleb are real experts in what we've got going on. They'll talk about the details. I'll talk about the high level stuff. So don't ask me the difficult questions because I won't know the answer. But I will say that as a system, we're in good health. We're doing well. We just had a board meeting last night, board of directors meeting last night, and some of you may tune into those occasionally. I would just let you know that as members of DEC, you're always welcome to come to the board meetings. I respect the fact that you've got this meeting to come to, and that may be all you can handle, and that's fine. But you're always welcome. The meetings are open to the public, and we welcome you to come and engage with the board as you deem necessary and appropriate. As I told the board last night, we've just now been able to finalize our report on our last fiscal year. We closed out our budget with a $35,000 surplus. In context, that is $35,000 of $37 million. So that is a very balanced budget. That's like pennies to your hundreds of dollars, if that. So,
Yep.
it's a really good outcome of our budget, and we're very pleased. That's the second year in a row that we've come through with a completely balanced budget. A couple of factors that are contributing to that. One is that we have finally gotten to a place with the city where the true costs of what it takes to operate Dash are being funded and being realized. We also have been implementing a lot of internal controls and methods to make sure that our staff are fully engaged with understanding the limitations of the budget and are utilizing the funds as they're intended and are being kept informed of how we're doing with that. Historically, prior to that all those things didn't necessarily always happen. And we also had external factors that were real challenges. Looking ahead, I think the theme at Dash and the theme everywhere right now is we're not sure. I can tell you we've had a great start to our new fiscal year. I feel like we're on track to do the things we need to do in the right way. As far as our current year budget is concerned, we are tracking. We are showing a pretty substantial surplus right now, largely because of the timing of payroll and the timing of payments, particularly related to maintenance. I will say that the most difficult thing for us right now as an organization has been maintenance. There's a couple of factors that are going into that. Primarily, the costs have a lot to do with the increasing costs of everyday goods is also what we're seeing in the increasing cost of maintenance. We buy hand towels just like you do for your house, but we buy thousands of them. And so you think about the inflationary pressures that you've seen, we're seeing the same things. We've also been heavily affected by tariffs. Raymond is navigating that with our bus manufacturers and suppliers, but ultimately those things have been very difficult for us to figure out and to plan for. Fleet downtime has been a challenge for us. That primarily has to do with two things, one being staffing, the other being availability of parts and components that are necessary to repair the buses. So we've made great headways in our staffing, and we're working hard to ensure that particularly our overnight shifts, we have 3 shifts, the midnight quote unquote shift and the weekend shifts are adequately staffed and supervised. It's generally the time when the most work can get done, but it's also when you have the fewest people. And it's oftentimes also a time that you struggle to get people. So we've really had a hard time recruiting people, keeping people, having them productive. You think about it, they're working in the middle of the night when you're sleeping. That's just a hard thing to staff up, but we're making progress. From a service perspective, our operational perspective, we're well staffed. We've consistently been hiring and doing a good job of keeping up with our bus operator needs. And so I think we're at a good place operationally. When we have operational challenges, they are often one of two things. One is we could have a shortage of bus operator availability, but more often lately, it's been equipment availability. When you have a number of buses down, which is what we call the deadline, for those of you who might be new to this, the deadline is essentially where a bus ends up when it is not able to be used for service. It could be out for a repair, it could be out for a safety issue, it could have been in an accident, who knows? When the deadline reaches a certain level, we start to struggle to have assets available to make what's called pullout, which is essentially the time and the day and time under which that a person is expected to go out there in the field and perform a service. So you have to match a person with equipment. But I say all of that in the context that we're maintaining a pretty good on-time performance. We're in the mid-80s as far as on-time performance percentage. One might scratch your head and say, gee, that sounds kind of low. You would think you'd want to be 100%. We would love to be 100%. But because of the lack of transit priority in this area and significant traffic demands and high utilization of our system, those things all come together and slow us down. I was just over on the west end of town today, coming back, and Duke Street, for whatever reason, was narrowed down to one lane. And I was, coming from a meeting, and there was a bus in front of me, a bus behind me, just stuck. And, those kinds of things are real challenges for us. So looking ahead in the future, the things we're prioritizing as an organization is making sure that our service meets the demand. One of the areas in which we do that is our service planning department and how our service is cut. Run cutting, if you want a lesson on that, talk to Raymond. I'll spend hours on it. But anyway, it is the process by which we go ahead and figure out how we provide a full service schedule. And you all as riders have a bus that shows up at 5:15 p.m. when you expect it to show up to bring you here from King Street, for example. So we're working very hard to make sure we're maximizing the usage of our resources, and we're ensuring that our service is configured in the best way possible to meet both high demand challenges around on-time performance and other factors that may be influencing our service. Regionally, we're having a lot of conversations around this subject. You may have heard of DMV moves, which is sort of I think just a creative, fluffy name for, hey, let's all get together and talk about how we maximize transit services in the region and how we potentially ensure that they are coordinated in the best way possible. Quite frankly, I think we do a great job with that. When I came here in 2017 and went to King Street, I scratched my head and said, how does this all happen? If you stand there and see one of our buses come through, a Nevada bus, a train, and who knows what else, it happens because of our people, and the people are getting that done. So DMV moves, I think, is an extension of that to say, is this happening the right way, and how do we make sure in all the areas we can that we ensure coordination? To be clear, there is no conversation under which there is any path by which WMATA consumes Dash. That's not going to happen. There has been hints of that. Various parties like to come along and have a conversation and say, gee, this is really inefficient. Why don't you just take all the Dash resources and all that money, just put it in WMATA and help pay that bill and just run more WMATA service? Well, I won't go into a tangent about my opinions about that. The reality is that Dash exists because that didn't work. Dash was created in order to solve a problem, which is a local issue, needs for local governance, local service that serves our community. People like you are the reason Dash exists. So the reality is DMV Moves is not about that conversation. It's about how do we collaborate. There is another initiative underway called SJ28. I don't remember what SJ says. Joint meeting, something. So this is a Virginia initiative. Essentially, SJ28 is an effort to find ways to either dedicate funding towards transit, particularly in Virginia, throughout Virginia and in Northern Virginia, or to solve in some way, shape, or form transit funding needs. It always is in the room of WMATA. You got to fund WMATA. There's always this cliff. There's always all of this they get all of the news and all of the attention. And frankly, I'm okay with that. Because sometimes it's a real challenge to deal with all of that attention. But they have a big bill to pay. Alexandria pays a WMATA bill and they pay a Dash bill. And they pay a paratransit bill and they pay a school bill and all these other things. And so Alexandria is largely doing that on their own. The tax base is supporting those services. Transit makes up a little over 5% of the city's total budget, annual budget. And that in that 5% is Dash and WMATA and paratransit. So SJ28, depending on where that goes and considering how the most recent election went, it is likely that will continue to move forward. The incoming administration is likely to be very transit friendly and favorable to figuring out ways to fund our services. If SJ28 goes through, it primarily is funding WMATA services, but there is also carve out money for Northern Virginia transit jurisdictions to help fund systems like Dash. Doesn't cover entirely our bill, but it brings us some new money that helps to either offset the cost the city is incurring to operate Dash or to supplement it in some way and help us get over the line on some of these improvements, which you all previously discussed are priorities that exist back from 2022 that have not been implemented. So those are some great funding opportunities, and so we're going to keep tuned into that. And lastly, but certainly not least, there's a city budget process that's going on where the city is considering their subsidy that goes to Dash. We have submitted a budget, current services budget with a 2.7% increase. That is the lowest increase in almost 5 years or more. Year over year increase and for current services. And for those of you who might not be familiar, current services is doing tomorrow what we did today. What does it cost to run the service exactly as we bring it today, tomorrow? Those costs go up regardless of whether we add service. They go up because there's 300 employees. Each one of those employees, its anniversary date, they move up a little bit in the pay scale. Year over year, they get a pay increase and so on and so forth. And the cost of parts and repairs and all those things, fuel, you name it. So we've kept the increase very low. We had to make some sacrifices to do that. Where we made the sacrifices is that we had built in some funds to help try to address the pressure on drivers that they're feeling in regards to staying on time, their breaks, what happens when they miss trips and they fall behind, what are some redundancies we can build into the service, and what are some ways we can restructure the service to put a few more assets out there and cover the service that we run. We are currently in collective bargaining. And in the collective bargaining process, we have asked for a 1-year extension of the current contract. And in that, there is a ask from the workforce for a pay increase. We don't have new money from the city to do that. And so the way we ended up managing that is by sitting down and saying, okay, well, we're going to pull from these funds in order to fund the pay increase. What that means to the end user is that your service, what you see today, won't change. It won't change tomorrow. It won't change potentially 6 months from now. There may be tweaks that Raymond's team through our Department of Planning can find to improve things, and there is a small amount of money set aside to do that, but the majority of those funds are being dedicated towards compensation. So again, it's not like service you see today will stop operating. It's not like things will get scaled back. It's just that where we might have students riding and we might have a bus that's running completely full, we may have hoped to add a supplemental bus right behind that. On a shorter timeline, it might take a few more minutes for that bus to get there. We're still going to run that service. We're still going to pick people up. They just might have to wait a little bit longer. But that's part of the realities of sort of managing that budget as a whole. So the current services budget is a little over $38 million. It's an increase of just shy of $1 million to the city. If they funded the entirety of the collective bargaining agreement, there would be another $1.8 million on top of the current subsidy ask to fund everything that we want to do before you even talk about supplementals. So there could be a situation where our costs went up so much that the city would be in a position where they couldn't fund us and we would have to scale back. We've tried very hard to avoid that. And I feel like we're in good shape. Throughout the budget process, we'll have conversations about that. We'll talk about reductions that were put forward, the same reductions that have been put forward in the past. I can tell you there's no interest on the city side to reduce Dash service in any way, shape, or form, no matter what the route or service. So I really doubt that any of those reductions that were put forward will be taken, but the reductions are a mandatory process. It's something that we have to submit. We have to show what would it take if you wanted us to do something, but I don't anticipate that happening. On the flip side, the supplementals, we pivoted course a little bit. The board will be putting together those supplementals, not necessarily through the supplemental process of the city, but they will still be presented to the city manager in the same way. There will be a letter outlining those, the 2022 improvements and the 2027 improvements, listing what those are, what the costs are associated with those, and providing the documentation so that when city council goes through the budget process, if they're prepared and interested in having a conversation about adding money to Dash to fund those services, they know what those dollar amounts are and what it costs to do that. So all in all, that's the package that's been submitted. That's a general overview of sort of where we are as an organization. The last thing I'll say, and I know Ray is here, so he may talk about this later, is that we've got a number of major capital projects going on. You all talked about the groundbreaking. This facility, we've outgrown the parking of this facility for many years now. You might notice there's some old buses even parked out along the street here. Not a good thing, but that's all we can do. So this additional parking down at the far end of the building, which is quite a walk. This building is very big. Will support not only parking for those additional buses, but it will have the charging infrastructure for electric buses. For a number of electric buses that we have coming through a variety of grants that have been secured over the years to add to the fleet. So all in all, I think it's a lot of good news. I think we're on the right track. I feel optimistic about how the year is going to play out. I think the challenges are the same challenges that we would expect in any year. Maybe heightened a little bit, uncertainty around the cost of operating, things that might change mid-year if fuel suddenly goes, sky high. If there are major impacts on supply chain, those kinds of things will hamper us, but certainly we'll keep you all posted if any of those things ultimately pop up. So I've said a lot. Now I'm done. I'll take any questions.
Josh, how are the electric buses working out?
Not great. We have 16, right? 16 electric buses. They're split between two manufacturers, one of which went bankrupt. The good news is they're not parked out there on the street anymore. So that tells me something's happening with those buses. Some of them have been down for over a year. When those buses are out of service, either we can't get parts, we can't get them fixed, whatever the cost is too high, that affects our fleet availability, as I talked about earlier in the conversation. And that's where we get hit with issues around pullout and service reliability. The next set of electric buses, Raymond's handling, he does all of this work, is going to be from a third manufacturer. So we'll continue to diversify the fleet. So when they're up and running, I think they're great. But I think the largest issue has been because the electric buses as a whole are a new technology. The manufacturers are still trying to figure them out. And as such, we've ended up with a bunch of challenging vehicles that don't always want to run.
Like what percent you say don't run?
Upwards of half at times.
40 to 50%-ish.
Are they breaking from random things, or is it one thing, or?
Some of them are down due to a theme of things. So for example, the vehicles that are part of the front of manufacturer that went bankrupt, a lot of that are down. A lot of them are down because when they go down, they typically have support where availability and access to parts, they are able to get back up within a reasonable amount of time. Those buses, when they go down, they have no support, no parts. and no presence of manufacturers, so they just stayed down until the manufacturer was able to get back on their feet, and they were able to get the parts and support flowing again. So that accumulated a lot of downtime on those vehicles. On some of the others, we're seeing just miscellaneous issues that brings those buses down. A lot of them relating to battery technology, where there's a particular battery manufacturer where they're finding the issuing recalls due to manufacturing defects that are just now being exposed. So there's things that are just coming to light just due to time.
What kind of batteries are they? Are they LFP or cattle, or who makes the batteries?
They are the Proterra batteries are self-manufactured by the manufacturer, and the competitor, they use a battery that's sourced from a company called Exalt.
And who's the surviving bus manufacturer?
The company's called New Flyer.
New Flyer. Are they good or?
They have the challenges. They have the challenges. They
A lot
also
of New Flyers in our fleet. They build all types of buses. And they're the exclusive, and every WMATA bus you see is a New Flyer bus.
And can the guys are having trouble fixing them too because it's a new technology or?
yeah, there's definitely a learning curve associated with it as well. There's a learning curve associated with our own staff being able to work on them, troubleshoot and diagnose them. And there's also a learning curve on the support side as well. The support network that is responsible for taking care of these buses from the manufacturer, they're all going through the same learning curve. They're coming from the diesel, CNG, and conventional world, and learning high voltage batteries and ESS systems for the first time as they're developing it.
But in the 38 million from the infrastructure bill, there's money for staff retention or retraining.
Yep.
How is Dash spending that? What are you doing to retrain your people?
So we have a loan award that dates back to 2023. Part of that award is a legislative mandated set aside that amounts to $1.5 million. It's a substantial amount of money that we're planning to invest in training and a lot of the training for our own staff as far as training itself, but also training materials, modules, tools, labs, and sending them out to outsource training and stuff like that. We have historically always relied on manufacturer training that requires a lot of repetitiveness in order for us to actually be able to leverage it and get good at it. So training like this, especially on a new technology, requires a lot of repetition. It requires exposure to the issues and the opportunity to actually use the training to be able to troubleshoot and diagnose and then finally address the issue.
And are you learning from sister cities that have implemented buses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The world of transit itself is very small.
Yeah.
The world of transit who is working on zero emissions as we are is even smaller. So we're very in close touch with a lot of our peers, both in this region, in the state, and across the nation who are experiencing the same challenges that we are. So there's a lot of, we do, we share our lessons and we learn from others at conferences and events that they host and we host. There are associations and alliances that we all, we all participate as part of to do, information sharing. We share our experiences and our lessons learned, and we learn from others as well. What works with us.
Very sad. Thank you.
We'll get there. We're on the right track, and I think the good news is that things are looking better overall, and we're on the very early stages of that training process. It will be a multi-year process and development of our team and our resources and our tools and equipment and all those things, but that's something.
So when we buy new buses, are they electric or they're?
We are still buying new electric buses. We also have some diesel buses coming in. So the last thing I will say about the capital is that in the fall, in September, when City Council and the Dash Board of Directors sat down to have a conversation about this issue and others, we pointed out the fact that the city does not fund electric buses. The city does not program the money to fund electric buses. The cost for them is approaching double at this point of the cost of a diesel bus. And the reality is that you are having major environmental impact, beneficial impact by getting people on transit. regardless of the propulsion. And so if we can't afford to buy an electric bus, we need to buy a diesel bus, because that diesel bus still is offsetting major amounts of carbon emissions from single occupancy vehicles and people not utilizing transit. But the reality is there is a goal to be fully electric by 2037. We're not likely to hit that. So we worked to get agreement with the fact that when we can buy electric, we buy it. But when we can't, we're buying diesels or other modes, because we cannot stop keeping up with the replacement of the fleet. State of good repair is #1 priority. We cannot let the assets age out to a point where they are no longer reliable.
And you talked a bit about fleet downtime and staffing. I mean, Raymond just talked about some of the investments. How is that getting matched up? And you talked in particular that overnight is maybe one of the most effective times. Sorry for like 5 questions here, but I just wanted to ask more about this kind of fleet downtime. You talked about staffing challenges, parts, investment in training, overnight staffing. Can you give a little more on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A couple of things that we've been doing differently in our maintenance department. First of all, we have new leadership in there who's been doing a great job of orienting the department in the right direction and helping us to figure out where are our shortcomings and what are the things that we need to be focused on. From a staff development perspective, we just had that conversation about training and development. That also applies to our diesel mechanics and everyone who's providing services on the buses. We are bringing in younger mechanics, both in age and in experience, and looking at ways to train them on the job or facilitate developing them as mechanics. The reality is, in the ideal world, to get us to 100% where we need to be tomorrow, we would have a whole set of highly qualified, certified mechanics knocking on our door that we could hire today and put them all out there and have them start working on the buses. We don't have that. The access to mechanics is very, very limited. It is a job market that is very favorable to mechanics. There are not a lot of them, particularly diesel certified mechanics, particularly electric vehicle certified mechanics. And we just don't either pay enough, we don't have the ideal shifts for them. They can often do better in the private sector. So there's a lot of competition. We're chipping away at that. To be clear, we've hired a number of mechanics. They've been doing a great job. They're coming up to speed. But it is a slow process. So we are short-staffed and we have to continue to build that. On top of that, we have to find leadership for all hours of the day, including weekends. So you're talking about 24-hour staffing 7 days a week, finding not only the people to work on the buses, but supervisory personnel to help manage their work. What we found is that for a number of shifts, we were having mechanics or people doing the work, but we weren't able to staff the supervision. And what we found was productivity was very low. And so we then reoriented and have been working to staff up the supervisory level to ensure that the work continues. At the end of the day, though, work shifts are picked based on seniority. So our highly skilled, seasoned mechanics who have the highest seniority come in and say, I want to work 9 to 5. 9 to 5, most of our buses are out on the road. So we might get them on 4 or 5 different assets throughout the day. But the big work that, tearing down an engine and doing an overhaul that really needs to be done overnight, they're not here. We end up with our C mechanics who are very limited in their skill sets or currently in development. So it is a systemic challenge that we're working with, but I think we're trying a variety of different methods to get where we need to be. And over time, we will continue to be coming forward with ways that we're going to tackle that, both through what we do internally and how we develop our team, but also what are the resources that we need in order to accomplish that. Fine print, money.
How about charging a fare?
Charging a fare comes up a lot. But it is a non-starter for a number of reasons. The primary reason is that to resume collecting fares, the city needs to invest between $8 and $10 million in fare collection equipment. In the very best scenario, pre-pandemic, back when we collected fares, when ridership was as high as it had been, we were collecting 3.5 million in fares. So you're looking at 4 to 5 years before you even start to pay off the cost of the equipment. Compound that with decreased ridership, bad fares, less ridership. That will reduce the amount of federal dollars coming to the region because the higher the ridership, the more federal formula money comes to the region. So you start to collapse. And then last but certainly not least, when people are used to not paying a fare, they're not going to get on the bus and pay the fare. And the drivers are not going to make them. So I would guess that you would get 25% to 30% of the people would actually pay the fare when they get on the bus when you installed fare box equipment that cost $8 to $10 million. So at the end of the day, that's not the way to, in our eyes, to generate revenue. And I think on top of that, the fare free program has been an enormous success. So I've armed you all with a bunch of sound clips. So good question. Thank you for asking it. But there's a lot of reasons that is an infeasible.
You're ahead of New York already.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Montgomery County?
Yeah, they just went fare free right on.
Yes, they did. Talked to them like Jim.
Just one question, to make sure I heard right. The budget you've given the city manager for current services is short by about 1.8 million of what you need or what you would like to have more reliable and some service redundancies. Is that 1.8 million the right number that I heard?
It's 1.8 million would be the increase. Right now, the increase is 800 and some odd thousand. So,
So this year, the year we're in, you're operating right now with a little more
we
redundant.
would need over another $1 million on top of what we're already asking for. It would be a 7.7% budget increase to do that and implement all the improvements. Yeah, Ray, did you want to add to that?
You might be right.
I might be right. There's a lot of numbers. I mean, at the end of the day, we submitted the budget, and then what we did was we went back and we said, well, what would be the scenario? And you've asked the question, so we'll get you the answer. What would be the scenario? What would be the delta additional that would need to be funded to roll out all of the other service reliability improvements and changes that we would like to do? The big difference is we go from 2.7% increase, which we've been told, by the way, is 1.5% is the allowable increase. So 2.7. So we've done as best we can, and we think the city understands that, to 7.7% increase. Yes. Oh, sorry. And then Bonnie, I think, had your quick, but who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead. I thought the city had asked for a 1% decrease in the budgets.
Yes.
Were
they
you
did.
exempt from that?
No, we had to submit that. Those were the reductions of lines 103 and 104.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
When you were talking about how you guys have communication with the other sister cities who also prioritize having only an electric fleet of buses, is there like continuity of communication between each of these cities? Like, is there a way for the mechanics here to talk to other mechanics over there to ask them for help or advice on certain issues? I don't know anything about like how engines work, but when I used to program in school, you know, whenever I had a problem with a program, even if it wasn't the same exact like issue, I could kind of figure it out by looking at other programmers' past mistakes on like Stack Overflow or something like that.
Really good question. So I'll answer one part of that, then I'll let Ray answer the other part. In this industry in general, I'm not talking specifically about mechanics. The nice thing about transit is that we're not a business where we're in competition with others, right? So we're not McDonald's not willing to tell Wendy's how we, sped up the drive-through.
Yeah.
So the lines of communication when they happen are very open. I think that the general challenge is that what are you experiencing? Is it something that someone else has experienced? And is that person available to have a conversation when you're needing that conversation? But on a broad level, yes, that's the answer for transit. Ray and his team have been spending a lot of time talking with these entities, so maybe you can speak a little bit to how much the experience conversations are helping to solve these problems.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of dialogue and a lot of forums where these conversations happen. There are alliances that we are a member of. There are forums that we monitor message boards of people experiencing issues. Hey, we've had a bus go down for whatever reason. I'm seeing whatever X, Y theme, this pattern. We share that, they share it out there, and we just kind of pick each other's brains about what we're experiencing and what we can learn from each other. There's also, we have between the agencies, we all have direct lines with each other on an individual basis, but there's also groups of us that have quarterly meetings every quarter. Every single agency, it's a meeting of about 80, 90 individuals representing all of North America who hop on and spend an entire day talking about all of our issues, all of everything that we've encountered from the last quarter to this quarter. That gets into all sorts of nitty-gritty details and technical specifics. So because there is not a lot of official or proper resource for support, especially struggling to get support from manufacturers, we have had to get very well at turning to each other to learn and figure out how to support this fleet.
So a mechanic here, like say like they're working night shift and they talk to someone who's like maybe on the West Coast, like they could talk to another person like that day, that night.
Yeah, typically they would just powwow with their immediate supervisor. And between the immediate supervisor and the manager, they'll pick up the phone and call their counterparts either up the street in Montgomery County, or Baltimore or Blacksburg, whoever has similar fleets or we know they have similar issues, and we'll just powwow with them and figure out, look for the answers that we're looking.
But if you guys said that you're having trouble having supervisors at night, then what would they do if they can't talk to a supervisor?
So the baseline is we do provide ways for them to get in touch with supervisors, if not for their immediate shift, then for the adjacent shifts. So when they come off, when they come on, they'll be able to get in touch with the immediate supervisor. Or we have an order policy. Anyone in any shift who works in any parts of the day, they can get a hold of their department manager, deputy director, and be able to get help and resources or stuff like that.
I think a lot of times they'll just move off of that issue, go to a different one, and that issue will wait until the daytime. And then whoever is here during the daytime will typically try to pick up on that work and figure out the solution. But the thing that I think is interesting, the thing that goes on in this industry is there's a lot of times where external parties come in and work alongside our technicians to solve the problem. And we focus on putting that technician entirely with that external party. So if the engine manufacturer comes in to solve a problem, you go and you stay with him the entire time. And you watch exactly how he solves this problem, you work through it together, you now have learned something. What's interesting about the electrics is that oftentimes that manufacturer's rep is coming and going, I don't know. I gotta call someone in Canada, right? And then it's like, okay, well, try this and try that and send us this part. And that takes a week and then they come back. And so it's not great. Fortunately, this is, less than 16% of our fleet right now. So we're talking about a very small subset of the fleet where we're having these particular challenges and issues, but that will grow as we add more buses. So we're working very hard to get ahead of that. Did you want to add something, Ryan?
There's like some countries, their entire fleets are electric.
Yes, and in many other countries, they have access to a worldwide network of bus suppliers. In the United States, there are only 2. And we are only allowed to buy from 2 whenever we use federal money because there is a Buy America restriction.
And also suppliers in other parts of the world, they have the ability to learn and support at scale, especially in a space where they only focus on electric vehicles. Whereas our manufacturers, one, they don't produce at scale, and second, they produce and have to support a wide variety of technologies, electric being a small segment of them.
I used to be responsible for this as a federal official, but I'm retired now, but.
Good for you. Well, certainly, if there are other thoughts that you all have as you discuss various questions you have, and as you work and receive additional presentations that we can provide you more insight on, we're certainly happy to send you all some materials and have more specific briefings around particular subjects. So just let us know what that looks like.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Why isn't there more of a priority to put like benches and shelters at more bus stops so that it's easier for riders to like, if they're gonna wait anyway, might as well like pass the time if they're sitting down if they're on their phone.
I think that we need to get, what's his name? Why did I forget his name? City?
Chris,
No,
Jordan.
no, keep going.
Oh.
No, none of them. Works for Hillary, Silas. Need to get Silas to this group to do a presentation, discussion around bus stop infrastructure and investments. The city handles that. We work very closely together on that. But the city maintains bus shelter and bus infrastructure because they are shared among they're shared among us and WMATA. And also the city is the recipient of the funding for the bus shelters and benches. I think there is a high priority on those improvements, and they are being rolled out gradually. It is a combination of availability of funds, timing, and the access to the things they need, the benches, the shelters and whatnot, and then obtaining the right of way, making sure they get the permits and everything and go ahead and install it. It's kind of a complicated process. There is a new tool on Alexandria's website. It was discussed last night in the board meeting. I think if you just go to alexandriava.gov and look up bus stops or bus shelters or something like that, you can access that tool, and maybe Camilla, we can work on getting them direct link. It is interactive. You can see by bus stop, its various improvements. You can see what it's equipped with. You can see how many bus stops within the whole city are equipped with shelters, how many are ADA accessible, and so on and so forth. But I think the priority is there. I would say it's probably worthwhile for you all to maybe have a conversation and better understand where you might advocate with the city for more intentional resources, and if there are specifically stops that you all identify in use that are real problems, maybe having a conversation around those. So I think that's a good subject.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
That's one more question. In terms of influencing the state budget, do you have an avenue such as the Virginia Transit Association or something? Is there somebody, staff able to advocate for, certain outcome from SJ 28, for example? How do you do that?
Yes, we intend to do that. And the Virginia Transit Association and CTAV, the sister association, are both tuned in to what's going on. We go down and we visit Richmond in January and sit down with legislators to talk about priorities and funding priorities. I think that this upcoming session, hard to say sort of how that's all going to play out, but I think that with, again, the changes from the elections, there is a likelihood that the next couple of sessions will be very busy and there'll be a lot of opportunities. So I think what we can do is we can have conversations with you guys in advance of that, of how we might best align in advocacy with the state about sending more funding to transit projects. I know you all have a meeting schedule, so great questions. Always happy to come back anytime, so let me know, when and in what ways, and you've obviously got a great team here that can help facilitate those conversations and getting the right people in front of you. But this is excellent stuff. I really am super thrilled that you guys have these questions, that you're digging into these things and really getting an understanding, because that's really important and it's important part of your role. Not only to help inform us, but also to make you all experts. And maybe you can go back and brag to some transit people and say, I know this. Right?
Thank you, Josh.
Of course, yeah, great seeing you all.
Thanks, John.
So I'll go into some general updates. I think we all talked about some of the events that we had. I wanted to highlight the ridership block party. At this event, we had over 250 attendees, and I know a lot of you guys attended. We also had 15 city departments, so that was a really good partnership that we have with the city of being able to connect our riders to more resources provided by the city. We also had our Dash Rodeo. This was the first time that we actually opened it up to the public. I know in the past, some of the DAC members participated as judges, but this was the first time that we actually like had community members as judges. And it seemed like people really liked it. We had over 40 people that volunteered to be judges, and they were all members of the public. We also had 3 city departments that attended. They had their tables and they had provided information. And that one, we had over 150 attendees. And then the latest one that we just had was the groundbreaking ceremony. That was a little bit more difficult to attend because it was during business hours, but some of you were able to make it. We had over 60 attendees at that one. We had the RPT and BTA, the mayor, and a few other members from the city.
And if you look really close, this is the picture that Nathaniel sent where we had Nathaniel, Jim, Yvette, and Jim Durham join us. Yeah, it was a great event. It was an excellent opportunity to celebrate Dash and also meet some of our partner organizations that and city officials and elected officials and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we'll continue doing events like that. You'll be able to attend or participate or help with breakdown and setup. Any way is we're more than welcome to have you guys. So thank you so much for attending. Last time we did the Ride Guide feedback form. We did check all the feedback that we received. We were able to implement a very few on the current one. So I have copies if anyone wants to take them. But we are currently in the process of doing updates to the Ride Guide that's gonna be coming up February. So if you use this and have more feedback, feel free to let us know because we're in the process of working on that. The team is also working very closely with planning to develop more resources. So we're looking into doing a pocket guide. This is gonna be a way to just have like a system map, maybe not so much these schedules, just having different opportunities for people to see information in a different way and actually understand what works best, if it's a full ride guide or a pocket guide with just the map. We're also trying to get some information signs on some of the bus stops with like actual stops, where is it going, the route. So we'll make sure to share all that once we have finalized designs, well, semi-finalized designs to see if that helps with the rider experience and just making sure that you all have, our riders have the needed.
Question, follow-up
Yes.
question. It's
Yeah.
kind of a subset of the Parks and Rec bus stop shelters question. Do y'all put the maps in the bus stops? Just like the maps themselves, like the one that's in the rider guide here? This one.
Not the bus, no, that would be the city.
Okay,
There's a few bus stops, well, yeah, there's a few ones, those are put by the city, yeah. We do have copies of the ride guides on our buses, a few of the community centers, rec centers, libraries,
Just, yeah, the visitor center downtown.
Yeah.
Library.
apartment complexes.
Yeah.
So we try to definitely distribute that.
yes.
And once we have the pocket guide, we'll also distribute that and see what the outcome is, if people are more engaged with the pocket guide or if they continue to be more engaged with the full schedules.
Do you guys have like a general pulse on how frequent riders of the system navigate the system? Like I always find it super intriguing how other people who aren't Marcos navigate transit in the area, because I just use an app. I use transit app or Apple Maps and that's whatever. But do you guys like take any pulse on that? I know we have like the phone call or the text service, we have the website, and of course we have these ride guides, but
We don't have a fully clear pulse on that. When we get a lot of questions from like the customer service team, they usually use the transit app. I would say not a lot of people use the dash tracker. So if you wanna use the dash tracker and provide feedback, that would be great. We're always looking for feedback on the dash tracker. Some people definitely use the text message service, and sometimes when it's down, they call customer service. So we do see that people use most of the resources. I will not be able to say how frequently they do, but we do get comments on when it's not working or when it is.
That means it's being used.
Yeah.
That's great.
I would say that is a question that we definitely will lean on feedback from you guys, the DAC, to tell us how you guys as representative of the ridership, you use the system every day. You don't have the unusual bias that we do. We just work behind the scenes. We know exactly how it works and where we would go, but what we don't have as good a perspective as is the typical day-to-day riders, folks like yourselves and the people you represent. I always ask, what do I do when I'm in a new city, right? When you travel to different cities, I go to, I want to go to cities like New York, San Francisco, Chicago. I was recently at Disney World using their system. What do I find myself using? What was helpful for me, especially as someone who doesn't live there, who doesn't ride routinely, what works well, what doesn't work well. Like, for example, I recently found out that I typically default to Google Maps, right? If I'm in a new city, not here, I'm in a new city trying to learn a system, trying to figure out how to get somewhere, I would default to Google Maps, and Google Transit works great in most cities, and I default to it. And then I realized when I come back here, Google Transit is horrible when it comes to Dash. I don't know why. It's like it works great everywhere else except here. I don't know why. It's something we need to figure out. But again, I would challenge this group to tell us what you think. What do you think the common person does? I have seen when I've driven in buses myself. I've seen a lot of people. Oftentimes, when they do pick up a ride guide, they pick up a ride to get one piece of information. Pick it up, find out what time the next bus comes, and then they chuck it in the trash. Right. I would not be surprised if that happened. But again, we challenge the group to tell us what works well, what doesn't work well. What do you find yourself doing? Or more importantly, what do you wish that we do better or differently? We've done this since the late 90s. We have not done anything different since. And I know people from all over the country, all over different parts of the world, they've figured this out better than we have, I'm sure. But it's for us to figure out, are we doing it the best way for our riders in our community? And if not, there's other better things for us to try. What are they?
And I think the writer guide format with the timetables is just always going to be the most helpful raw distribution of information. I was only curious about, whether or not you guys knew or because, we had the ridership, the onboard rider survey last year, or maybe that was 2 years ago. Time is crazy. But I couldn't remember if that was asked, like, how do you navigate Dash, or like what navigational aids do you use? I'd say if you guys are planning on conducting that again, that would be a great thing to ask, to at least have, some sort of baseline. To see, what's appreciated, what's not.
We've started nibbling at the apple as far as trying to get some of the pulse check and get an idea of like what the distribution is. However, we tried to do it through the ATSP survey last year. So we're planning on kind of continuing that practice of trying to get some additional information outside of just strictly comment on these sets of changes. Also trying to get some rider demographic information as just to get a general idea. But the flaw with that is that these are the folks that are most likely to be vocal. So we're not necessarily hearing from folks that ride it every day but don't have the opportunity to sit down and actually write out a full or answer a full survey, write out a full list of comments to these things. So there's definitely an opportunity for us to look at those more low barrier to entry questions that we just ask folks, get some of that direct information like, cool, thank you, nothing else.
Well, I will say that the people that y'all hired or contracted to do those onboard surveys with the little iPads, like I said, whenever that was, they were very good at their job, and I was super happy to give them the responses. I know that there's a lot of language barriers, especially in Alexandria and the DC Metro, that kind of prevent full, data capture, or at least representative data capture. But I think that was a great effort. At least that is, that's a more surefire way to collect a lot of responses than relying on the subset of people who really, really are stoked to scan a QR code into it themselves, which I feel would probably lean more like Apple, Google Maps, Transit, those kinds of responses anyways, on that question. But yeah.
I do want to invite the writer subcommittee, if you have any sort of event or anything that is going on and you would like to share like the right guide with people and ask them like, hey, just use the right guide and give us your feedback, we are more than welcome to provide the right guides or any type of resources that you might think is worth sharing with people for them to kind of test it or just see their experience.
You mentioned the dash tracker. Is that just the dashbus.com site? Or something else?
Yeah, dashbus.com slash dash. tracker.
Yeah, it's dashbus.com/tracker. And it's an online resource that's mobile responsive, but for the most part, it is strictly through the website. We don't have a standalone app for it.
And then that's like formatted with a list, right?
For mobile, it's formatted in the list, but if you're using desktop, it has a little bit more of an interactive map where you can see buses in real time and some additional information. And you can also do trip planning and some other stuff.
Okay.
I mean, do you have analytics on that of like when people are using desktop versus mobile? It feels like most people must be checking that on mobile, right?
Yes, yeah, most people.
Like, yeah, I wish I could check my desktop every day, run out to the bus and make it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, we're at about, last we checked, about 70% of folks are using mobile or accessing our content, and whether social media or otherwise, by mobile. So,
It's really good. I know that people like enjoy an app sometimes, but I was reading about like that creates another barrier between the user on the phone and they have to download an app to get the information versus just taking to the URL. So like sometimes it's annoying to be like, oh, it's like this list and I'm like, I can't figure out northbound versus southbound and I'm like going back and forth. But then I'm like, oh, if more people get the information that way, it's a lot better way to present it.
So we did share a lot of links. One of them was the West Alexandria Transit Center. So if you have any questions, let us know. We also provided a link about the opening for the board of directors and just some news item with the rodeo and the groundbreaking ceremony.
Would it be possible to get like a quick overview of the West Alexandria Transit Center, kind of the status of how that's going?
The only thing to that would be we would have, with the time left, we would have to give up the discussion around the guidelines. That would be the only limitation for that.
I mean,
Unless everyone is okay with staying a couple minutes late.
I'm comfortable with that, but I don't want to volunteer everyone.
That's fine with me.
Well, Tristan's on the line. So Tristan, do you want to give a quick update on WATC?
Evening, everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hello again. To speak with you guys, and thanks so much for your volunteering your time to us and your engagement. Tristan Cunningham here, Interim Director of Planning and Scheduling. Last time I spoke with you about, gosh, I don't even remember what, but let's talk about West Alex real quick. So we opened sort of the phase one-ish version of that facility this past Sunday, November the 2nd. Excuse me, this replaces or relocates transit service on the former Landmark Mall site from underneath the dank, dark, kind of scary, skeevy looking parking garage out to an open environment on a road called Hecht Avenue, which eventually will be surrounded in retail and residential and part of a vibrant community. Excuse me, the facility as designed gives us much more efficient ingress and egress, so we can get buses in and out much faster. And of course, we've got a lot more space to accommodate all the services that are there now and soon to come. Frame of reference, we had 2 locations under the parking garage, AA and Bay B. We now have 6. And even with 6, we are, I wouldn't say at capacity, but the room for growth is limited. At a certain point, we will be bursting at the seams again, just with the planned improvements. So if you're over there, if you've been over there since Sunday, you will notice a fairly sparse implementation. We've had some supply chain shortages or challenges in getting shelters procured. There will eventually, later this year, early next, total of 12 shelters across the 6 bays. And that'll be the environment that that holds us for probably 18 to 24 months. While the city is designing a much more robust canopy-based facility with a lot of solid urban design and real-time information and all sorts of amenities. And I'm very excited about what I've seen in presentations. City has a website about this, but if you go to dashbus.com/westalex, you can click through and see some of the city's information. Camila, help me with the dates. It's either November 17th or 19th. There's going to be a soft opening of the current facility where city staff will be collecting feedback and sharing some information about the phase 2, which is that architecturally designed facility that I'm speaking of.
Yeah, last time we talked to the city, they said it was November 19th.
19th, thank you. Excuse me. That facility is again still under design, so we don't have a solid timeline on it yet because we don't know what's getting built. But we're in the later stages of design, and hopefully by the 19th or so, there'll be something nice to show off. So that is the state of play right now. I can hang around for any questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, again, thanks for joining.
Any questions for Tristan? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tristan.
Thank you. Great one.
Those are all the updates because I know we want to go over the guidelines revision.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make this a little bit quick, but and leave enough time for questions and kind of approach it that way. So as we discussed last time in our Q3 meeting, we discussed kind of a overview of the DAC self-assessment. And these were some of the things that we identified as, this is the former purpose that was kind of written in the previous guidelines. And then these bottom 4 items were things that were identified as a general operating mode that the DAC would like to operate in. If we go to the next, and some of those changes are reflected in the new guidelines as far as purpose and some of the other aspects as well. We identified that in order to enact subcommittees, a revision to the guidelines was needed in order to add that specific language to it. The last time that the guidelines were updated was October of 2022. So we also saw this as an opportunity to refresh some items, make it a little bit less, make it a little bit more approachable to the general public, because this would be a public facing document and could potentially serve as a document that entices people to potentially join. And we want to make it as approachable as possible. In those terms, in the way that the former guidelines were drafted, we're just very kind of caught up in legalese. So we wanted to kind of simplify that. We also identified in the guidelines that the subcommittees are examples. I'll kind of go over that in a second. And then adding some of the exact terminology that's used here as far as a simple majority to create subcommittees, and then participation from at least 3 DAC members for it to stay engaged. And then if it ever falls below that, it either is disbanded or falls to inactive. That terminology is in there. The next slide, please. And some of these other things were also captured in it. We broadened the definition to participate and advocate in DASH events. I'll go over some of that terminology, but generally the way that we approached this was to broaden a lot of the language to allow for a lot of flexibility depending on the capacity of the DAC, as well as enable subcommittees to kind of like redefine where priorities were going to kind of fall. Yes, and then adding opportunities for budget, policies, budget, infrastructure projects, input through the advocacy and advocacy and public policy subcommittee, even though it's not specifically framed that way. And then if we go to the actual guidelines, I'll run through. So this is the new structure of the guidelines. These are a general overview of some of the things that were changed or reflected. So in purpose, we updated the purpose to include an expanded DAC mission, emphasizing writer engagement, advocacy, community outreach partnerships, a lot of those things that were identified in the self-assessment. Membership, we revised and reorganized them to provide a little bit of a clearer and more transparent details of composition, size, eligibility. We also teased out a lot of these things. Composition used to fall under the general membership, which was I think about 8 sub items underneath. So we kind of teased a few of these things out, made it a little bit more clear to follow and track. And then kept some of the terminology as far as removals, updated some of the terminology around elections for both DAC chair, vice chair, and term limits and stuff like that. We integrated relevant membership content into the roles and responsibilities, added a what do we refer to it as? A code of conduct. We've added that to that as well. And then we also added the file storage provisions to enable centralized collaboration, enable the DACs to have a central hub to house all the documents, work products, create forums, and do a little bit more of that public outreach aspect that y'all are interested in. So, and then also keeping the guiding principles of the parliamentary procedure, keeping Robert's rules, but making it a little bit less formal, but also linking to those resources if you wanted to get a little bit more up to speed on what some of those motions are or the other general guidelines of the process. And I guess from there, I'll open it unless, open it for questions if you've had an opportunity to review the guidelines as they are now. Otherwise, I can go through some of the primary changes in the guidelines itself.
I had a couple things. I noticed that you are suggesting that we elect a new chair every year. That means that we would have to elect a chair every 4th meeting. And I'm wondering why you wanted to make that change. And my second question has to do with the size of the group. I think you said it could go up to 21 members. That seems a little large to me. And I'm wondering how you came up with that number.
So addressing the first question in terms of, I'm sorry, could you?
The election.
Yeah, so the election.
Election of the chair every 4 meetings.
The annual elections was an idea to enable a little bit more of a engaged DAC. So if instead of tying it directly to a DAC member's term, it enables an opportunity for people to fall in and fall out of leadership as their availability and capacity or want to stay in leadership. It doesn't require somebody to stay in leadership for that. It also enables the DAC to offer and throw your hat into the ring to become a little bit like if you want the experience of being a DAC chair and you can gain a simple majority of folks to support that chairship, then you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, the election process could be, does anybody support a nomination for another chair? If not, and if the current chair is willing to stay on for another year or seek that reappointment, they're more than welcome to just go by unanimous consent, kind of just stay that way. I've left the elections pretty fluid as far as it's just set to be annual. So it could follow a fiscal year, follow Dash's fiscal year. It could follow a calendar year. I guess it's touching on a separate change that we also made was changing from an anniversary DAC membership to a calendar year, and that's just for the administrative side on the back end. And then the number that we got to on increasing the size of the DAC to the 21, we added sub-language to that depending on capacity, representation, and need for expanding the DAC. So it doesn't necessarily have to get up to 21 and it allows for a maximum of 21 because we also allow or want to encourage different community partners to be able to join the DAC and offer a little bit more of a, if enabled, like some of our community partners from Alive or Casa Trialagua or from the Carpenter Shelter or the Islamic Relief folks that we're actively collaborating with. So it's opportunities for different representatives from those organizations to, if so interested, to join. And it allows us to like ebb and flow with the new calendar year terms.
Okay. Yeah, it's a balancing act between being inclusive and having the committee get unwieldy.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I could just add to that real quick. I've served on a board that had 17 members and it's unwieldy.
Yeah, I just think
I guess I'd
15
like to
is,
just register. Go
yeah,
ahead, Bob.
15 is to me is absolute tops. And what you get if you have a bigger board than that is you get people who just sit there. They're not active, they're not engaged because, there's too many people.
And then you can't meet quorum either.
Right.
So how can we change that?
Just a really quick follow-up question to first question that she asked. So you said that the elections as they're written in the guidelines they're not mandated, but it just calls for the allowability of an election every year. If everybody in the DAC agrees, or I suppose doesn't agree for an election to happen, then there is no election.
There doesn't have to be
Okay.
elections per se. It would still follow the idea that it comes up for a vote.
Yeah, so like,
For the
hey
DAC,
guys,
but-
we need to decide, does anyone want to run or are we good how we are? And then, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only caveat to that would be the term limits for chair and vice chair now. So, and that's again to encourage people coming into and out of leadership throughout the 6.5-year maximum term that folks can set. Just to allow some of that experience to kind of just be spread around if so desired.
Is that the new guidelines in the
Yes.
center? Okay, I've been looking at the stack for this whole time. I'm like, let me grab some. They state.
And so as far as the unwieldy comments, those are definitely heard and we appreciate those. The thing that we want to ensure is that we don't necessarily have to reach that maximum. It just allows for the possibility of it getting there. We still haven't hit a maximum capacity of 17, but also we think that with the subcommittees now meeting quorum, that's a very valid point. But with the point about the getting too unwieldy or folks not necessarily wanting to participate or being quiet during meetings, we think that the subcommittee, so long as they stand up and continue to proceed, that it allows for an opportunity for engagement that way.
I found the language. It says the chair and vice chairs shall be elected annually by committee members. So that does mean there would be, not that, I mean, maybe nobody will decide to run against the current chair, but it means we have to deal with it once a year.
Yeah, so it could, the way that I'm foreseeing an election would simply be in the way that I've explained it so far, is like if the current chair, everyone is content and fine with it, a motion to reappoint would be fine or reelect is fine. So long as no one else wants to throw their hat in the ring. But it allows for the opportunity if someone wants to throw their hat in the ring to do so. Otherwise, it can stay the same.
And to be clear, in the history of the DAC, has there been any feedback to staff that there's not enough opportunity to be chair?
I haven't heard that.
I mean, we're on our second chair in 5 years, right?
Okay,
But, and that's
There's no problem you're trying to fix.
not necessarily, but the thing that we're trying to stay away from is now that we are hitting the 5-year point, we've only had 2 chairs. It's not saying that's necessarily a problem, but we also want to open it up for the possibility that if someone hits that 4-year maximum that we're proposing as a term limit, that those are consecutive years. So if, for example, you wanted to serve for 4 years as chair, run unopposed, and stay in that position, you would just fall out of leadership for 1 year, and then you could be reappointed in your last year in your final term. So we're just mostly focusing on the possibility of, especially as we encourage younger folks to join, if they want to be a member of leadership or run for leadership, they have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think now with the subcommittees created and we're doing more of the engagement and trying to get new members is good for them to have different opportunities. Either run as chair or vice chair, and for everyone to be able to have that opportunity if you want it.
Yeah. Any questions or comments or anything from online?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So with the last couple of minutes, if there is a majority of folks that feel that revisions or a specific amendment needs to be made to the guidelines as they currently are, these have been accepted. These are the current operating guidelines that we have right now. If there's a simple majority to revise a specific section or component to it, we would be open to those motions, but otherwise, these are the guidelines as they stand. And I guess, I don't know, do we open the floor for that, or is that a motion that the chair does?
I think my understanding, so just let me take one step back before we go to that point. I wanted to start by saying thank you to Caleb and Camilla, Josh and Jim in particular did a pretty significant amount of work on this. I think overall, we come out with a much better product. I think, there may be specific things that are worth discussing as the DAC, but I think overall we come up with a much stronger product that is kind of evolving with the organization that the DAC is. So I want to start with that. Thank you. I think in terms of, next steps, this is a generally approved document, but I think that just like everything else that we're doing here, it's up for debate. So if there are specific things that people want to.
This being presented to us as already approved guidelines.
That's my interpretation.
So
this is a staff-driven project, and we just say, okay, is that what I'm hearing?
no, not necessarily. So the way that the guidelines, it kept the same language as it was last time, that's proposals or changes to the guidelines have to be approved by the general manager. These have been approved by the general manager, but we are opening it to specific simple majority as far as revisions or amendments go on specific provisions or changes and what those proposals might be.
Yeah, Bunny, the way you might think of it is, we asked for a couple powers in the last DAC committee, and so this added them formally immediately. But this document is like open for revision. So if that
Yeah,
helps.
I mean, the DAC guidelines have always been open to revision.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's one of the, fine, yeah, so this, we had that guidelines, if we always wanted to change just the number of members, we could have always recommended to Josh that, we changed the number. So I mean, those are easy changes. So I think the point is the guidelines, Josh has always been very receptive to changes and discussion of changes. So I think reinforcing that point is good. And I want to add my thanks to the staff. This has been almost a lifelong project to really update and make it much more cohesive. And I appreciate you keeping it shorter than say some of the earlier versions.
But I do hear the concern there. I think we should, seriously take some time and make some motions, even if they're not able to be done right now in this specific session of recommendations for revision. I think we should do that because I think the intention is to formalize the powers that we requested in the previous meeting. I think that's the core of what this was. But I do hear that concern, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can also take these proposals via email if there is a remote vote that would like to happen, anything like that. And as Jim mentioned, these are more than welcome to be revised at any point. This is the first time, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, since 2022 that anyone had taken like a really deep look at these. Revisions are definitely open.
Yeah, I think the chair piece, I'm open both ways. It's just, it does feel a bit onerous, I think, to have it every four meetings. But, at the same time, if somebody else wants to do it, they could happily have the seat.
How about we limit it to no longer than 2 years for a particular chair? That way you have a little momentum, because we may not have a good chair. Like some people may be into this, some people may not. And then it's hard, like I'm the chair of the Transportation Commission. It takes a while to get in the flow. And you don't want to make too many changes, but you don't want to have, G ruling for 20 years either.
Right. The current limit in here is 4 years.
Yeah.
4 consecutive years.
Yeah, oh, right, right.
Yeah, so you can sit at, like, if you went in 1 year, sat out 2 years, you could after that serve another 4 or however that works. Sit out 2 years or
I think 2 is better.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, is it 4 years or is it 4 terms?
so it's 4 consecutive terms is the way that it's phrased in the
Since we
guidelines.
have.
But
Oh,
they-
But it's 4 terms of chair, it's not
Yeah.
4 membership terms. I was like,
No,
4 terms.
yeah.
Okay.
You would have a maximum of 5 years in over your
Yeah.
6.
Okay, makes sense.
So if you were your chair on your first day.
Yeah.
You'd be in charge of your first day.
you come in, get elected, and you're like, yes, and then 4 consecutive years.
Yes. So I think what we should do, just in the interest of time, is I think anyone who has a serious concern with any part of this, we should just do it. I think the membership piece, I also share Bonnie's concern, but I think what we can do is just only incrementally add people as we go forward. And kind of see, but I don't, I mean, we had 17 as the provision before. Yeah, I don't know that. anyone was-
We're what, 14 now?
I don't, yeah, I guess we're 14 now.
Yeah, echoing you, given that the membership and recruitment subcommittee's taking control of the first step of, interviewing and processing candidates, we effectively control how many people we actually let in. So even if we raise the ceiling to 21, which is, it's a big number, but 17 is also a big number and we haven't hit it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because,
we
we're
have three,
mindful about
we have 3 open positions, and how many people did you turn down?
it. That's true.
We do have another person that is interested that's in the process of applying and getting me their materials. And we've also been attending a lot of events, both at the libraries, at the high schools, well, the high school, but both campuses. And there's been a lot of interest in having more voice heard. So that's just one of those things that as we promote it, more folks might become interested in.
I would make a motion that we limit the size of the committee to no more than 17.
And I'll second that.
So that reflects what was in the original guidelines.
Do we, is there a need for discussion or do we want to move to vote?
Can we vote?
Yeah, you're.
Yeah, full voting members.
Is there any discussion in the room before we move to vote? Okay, all in favor of Bonnie's motion, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Yeah, 1 abstention, 2 nays. I think the motion, is this a simple majority? I guess we have the,
Yeah, 14, and yeah.
well, I guess the question is this a need for unanimous vote?
No, it's,
A majority vote for this?
Yes, I guess simple.
yeah, simple majority for revisions.
Yeah, I think what we'll find is if we hit 17 and we find like we're really not
Yeah,
as representative as we want to be as an organization, we can.
well, I think now that we do have a subcommittee, if the membership recruiting subcommittee feels like 17 is limiting, then let them bring that to us.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
There's also an opportunity if it gets that big with subcommittees, that there's non-voting members and that members. of
Yeah, but-
subcommittees are-
Right now, they're not defined in the bylaws.
Yeah.
So the establishment of non-voting members is certainly.
It's controversial.
If you want to propose it, then let's see what people think of that.
I
Yeah.
mean, I do think that this kind of takes us back to a previous discussion, and I think the DAC was generally in favor, which is to have more public attendance, meaning you could invite people who are not, that are just attending.
So that was some of the language that we removed out simply because since this is a non-governing body, it took the requirements of being a public meeting out of it. It still leaves open the opportunity for them to be public so long as the DAC approves it and feels free. We do post these videos online on our YouTube channel, so these are all public and transparent and stuff like that. So the guidelines just removes a lot of that legal terminology that kind of was held over from like a more governing body, but since this is advisory, we can continue to ebb and flow as we need.
And thanks for all your work.
yeah, thank you.
Good. Any other motions or proposals for revision? Matt, I don't know if you wanted to, or just let it play as it is. Okay, yeah, of course.
Follow bodies lead.
Good. Anything else? All right, I think we can go to any additional business or adjournment. That's where we are, right?
Yes.
Well, I can honestly say as your DAC chair for now, I guess, 3.5 meetings. What's that? No, well, maybe, yeah, maybe. Well, Jim was kind enough to run the first one when I was remote that time, but, you know, I have kept you late for 30 minutes, every single one. I'm very sorry about that. I looked at my watch like, do I interrupt Josh or do we keep going? But that was, I mean, as you know, he's always amazing to have here and visiting with us. And, you know, those are some of the most valuable pieces we get to hear from in terms of direction of the dash. So I want to always truly and sincerely thank you all for your earnest and strong interest in what we're doing here. It really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the Dash folks as well. So thank you very much. If there are any other, I have no orders of business other than my sincere thanks to everyone who's been providing all of this extra work in between meetings. I'm been really kind of reinvigorated for this committee with all of that energy. So I don't know if there are any orders of business that anyone wants to bring up.
I'll just say a 2-hour meeting is really reasonable when you only meet quarterly. So I wouldn't chastise yourself for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think it's more. A shameless plug for our subcommittee. If you have writer experience that you'd like to share outside of these meetings, or you've been saving it up, please send it over to myself. I think Jim Meslanka's on it, or sorry, Eric Van Horn is on it. Eric Adams, Jason Kunick. So that's one shameless plug. But if you have thoughts or things, I did capture people's remarks that they were giving feedback in the live meeting in the tracker as well. So we'll try to be following up with Dash staff on those as well.
The only thing that I would add is for some of these things that were identified in the meeting, if there are points where the subcommittees would like to specifically have, for example, Silas come and meet with their subcommittee, or have Dash professional staff join you for any of the ongoing things like public engagement and events and public engagement, have me attend some of those meetings. We're happy to help and coordinate Dash staff, city staff, any of those things as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Right.
Sure, if you have time.
Yeah.
Please sit here at another meeting.
Yeah.